The Big Ten schedule's here. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Huskies, your daily podcast on the Washington Huskies. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into another edition of Locked On Huskies. I'm Tomashoff. That gentleman over there is Lars Hanson. You can find all our written work at Inside the Huskies at si.com/college/Washington. That's with Fan Nation and Sports Illustrated. And thank you for making this your first watch or first listen of the day. And today's episode is brought to you by LinkedIn. These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. That's why LinkedIn Jobs helps find the right people for your team faster and for free. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnCollege. Terms and conditions apply. Lars, great to have you here with us as always. And today we're talking about the Big Ten schedule. It's still the bye week. We're still just kind of, enjoying a week off where we kind of get a little bit of a bye as well doing all this. So just initial thoughts on the Big Ten schedule, which is released for the next 5 seasons.
Yeah. See, welcome to the Big Ten, right? I mean, do you think the Pac-12 would have done this? I mean, I remember having a conversation. The Pac, don't disrespect us. I swear to God. But I mean, that was the thing about the Pac-12 is they would do a year out, but they would announce it in January or late December, early January. And it's like, okay, cool. We got this year's schedule, but is there any forward planning? Is there any long-term thought in this conference? The answer was obviously no. So with that being said, clearly a change of pace going to the Big Ten. But I think the one thing that stands out to me when you look at it is you have Michigan. The Michigan game gets to come back. It's kind of a payback for 2020. So you get to host Michigan. You finally get that big one. And I think it's appropriate because also having hosted Michigan State last year, might as well finish off and kind of put a nice bow on the state of Michigan. Level out who's actually going to. And the unfortunate part is Michael Penix will be gone, despite somebody asking me on Twitter that, are these NIL deals so Penix can come back for another year? I'm like, while it would be cool, don't get me wrong, at this point, it would be actually more of an indictment in the other way that he's coming back. We don't want to be Cam McCormick out here, and stay for 10 years. That's just not what we want to do for Michael Penix. So, but you do have a lot of options at quarterback next year. So I think the team will be fine. But you get a good test against Michigan. University of Iowa is on schedule. I'm intrigued about that one. You get to go to the middle of the country, a new opponent, things like that. The
Hospital Wave is going to be really cool. That'll be a fun environment.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of interesting matchups. I mean, if we want to just go through the whole thing right now, I believe we have – you want me to just run them off?
Please, go for it, yeah.
So away will be in just the 2024. We're just going to talk about 2024 right now because we could go down the road to 2027, but I don't think
we'll get there in the next segment. Yeah, we'll have some fun in the next one.
But so away is Iowa, Indiana, Oregon. So keeping the tradition,
still getting that, the protected rivalry, which is cool.
Exactly. Going to Happy Valley to play Penn State, which I think that's one where if you're a UW fan and you're looking at, okay, which away game do I want to go to? If I have to pick only one, pick that one. I'm just going to tell you that right now. And then Rutgers. If you're a fan of the state of New Jersey, like Roman is, you can join him.
Whoa. We are not going that far on the show. As someone who's been a good portion of my life in Massachusetts, that is not something you will ever hear me say.
I just wanted to get that out there.
Moving
on back home, bringing it back a little closer here. Washington will host Michigan. So like I said, you finish off the 2021 home season, home series, I should say. And then Northwestern, USC, and UCLA. So you still get all three other Pac-12 schools that are moving. You're going to continue those on, which I think is good, especially in the first year. Whether that continues every year beyond that doesn't have to be the case, could be, but I think for continuity's sake and travel, just logistics, like welcome to the conference. You're only playing one former Pac-12 school and it happens to be UCLA. That's not as appealing. You want to keep the Oregon game going. You want to keep those traditional games going. And it's a good balance because you miss Ohio State, you miss Nebraska, you miss Wisconsin, you missed a few. There's a few good ones that you miss out on, and so you're not getting destroyed coming into the conference just based on scheduling, right? You don't have Ohio State, Michigan State. You know, you don't have, well, Michigan State's a joke, but Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State. You know, you all three powers in the same season. You know, so it's a good conference schedule to open the Big Ten slate /
sure.
I don't even know what you want to call it. Is era.
I was going to go with era as well. But the one thing that I think that really just kind of stands out, and there's another thing that we're really excited to talk about on the show, is I think this schedule lines up pretty well for the Huskies in terms of what's going to be lost after the season. You talked a little bit about Michael Penix. You can't forget the fact that Roma Dunze is going to be gone after this year. The entire defensive line is going to have to be replaced next season. Edipone Ilfosio is gone. There's going to be 2, maybe 3 members of the secondary that aren't going to be on this team next year. There are a whole lot of starters, and that's, you know, excluding both tackles, both tight ends are probably gone. Like, there's a whole lot of turnover on this team. And it's a good way of not looking like, check out USC's schedule. USC has a brutal slate next year. Michigan, their schedule wasn't great either. Like, there are some really tough schedules that are going to be lined up for next season, where it's just kind of like, oh, this is kind of nice for Washington to get eased in. You get a couple of nice trips out of it, and then we're gonna talk a little bit more about some of the other road games that I like. I know I'd want to attend some of them. I know Lars, you want to do the same. Where, you know, sometimes it's hard for us up here to be able to afford to take every single trip. And like, even now with some of like these Pac-12 road trips, it's not the easiest to get to every single game. So sometimes we have to pick and choose our spots of where we can and can't go. And moving down the line, that's going to be even harder. So it'll be cool to just kind of be like, yeah, like, oh, this is a new environment. This is a new thing to experience. Well, while most of these are, Lars, you seem to have made a nice discovery here. Please share with the crowd.
So the interesting part and the unique thing now with this conference realignment and everything, and so the Pac-12 a couple of years ago did away with divisions, right? That's the reason why Washington wasn't in the Pac-12 championship game last year. Outside of the second loss, was there, you know, had they had a North and South, they would have been that North represented, right? But because you had Utah and I believe USC was the other one, correct? Right. So the 2 teams from the Pac-12 South traditionally were in the championship game. You wouldn't have had that last year. The Big Ten is keeping that tradition. They're doing away with the division format, no division format. Yep. So that to me is actually, it's both intriguing and actually good for UW, to where it's like, hey, make your out of conference an easy cupcake slate. Does not matter at this point. Forget Quint Kesnich and all that was you know, back in the day. You know, forget Mr. Lacrosse for a second here. That division format and not
lacrosse guy too.
And I mean, I'm a big lacrosse guy too, so like, yeah, that's a fair shot. But that is actually a pretty significant thing, because when you're thinking about out of conference scheduling, and now we're going to the Big Ten, do we have to have these big matchups? No, you don't. You do not have to do that. So I would be surprised if Washington plays any non-conference games west of Colorado or east of Colorado, I should say. So everything would be Colorado and to the west.
No, that's a very good point, and I know people hate that we say that so much on the show, but you're right. That's what it is, right? There, with all the travel, and our buddy Mike Varell put out a tweet, and I think it's in an article as well, of all the miles that this team is going to have to travel going forward. So it's like it doesn't make sense to continue doing that and to continue like adding tough slates to their schedule. Like, I know USC, like they have the Notre Dame one, which will always be a thing, but they also have to play LSU. Michigan has to play Texas. Like, there are still really tough games that are going to be on some team schedules. But in this case, for Washington, where you're right, the argument for a long time was, oh, well, who've they played? That doesn't matter, because just look at the schedule. Oh yeah, if they can get through that with, you know, 1 or 2 losses, not saying that's what's going to happen next year, but, you know, moving forward in the Kalen DeBoer era, and just as, you know, this team, as you know, is very possible, could turn into a perennial contender. Strength of schedule, especially in a 12-team playoff, is not going to be an issue for this team ever again, which is one of the big reasons that it feels like this move was made. It was because, yeah, we need that national exposure. Yeah, all the money, all that is great. That's probably the number one reason. But in terms of when you just kind of look at it at the end of the day, this schedule and everything that we've seen today is just so crucial and so important for this move that, yeah, like I feel like I'm just kind of going in a circle here, but that's it. The point is, this is very important. And now the fruits of the labor of, well, did this team kill the Pac-12? Did this Washington, Oregon move kill the Pac-12? Which, again, no, that USC and UCLA did that. And then Colorado was just kind of getting out, and then Washington and Oregon did what they had to do. So we're not even going to go down that road on the show, but this is why it happened. And now you can see that because it was about survival. And this schedule release and everything that you look at in it says, okay, yeah, this team is going to survive. And, before we get to picking one road game each that we would like to attend per year, so we're going to go through the full 5-year slate for everybody, we have to take a second to talk about our friends over at LinkedIn, because these days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. You want to be 100% certain that you have access to the best qualified candidates available. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps find the right people for your team faster and for free. All you have to do is add your job and the purple hashtag hiring frame to your LinkedIn profile to spread the word that you're hiring. Simple tools like screening questions make it easy to focus on candidates with just the right skills and experience, so you can quickly prioritize who you'd like to interview and hire. And that's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivering hires versus leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. All right. This I'm really excited about. So do you want to just maybe take people through the home and road schedules just really, really quickly here for each year? And then what we're going to do is, and knowing us, we'll probably have some overlap. We're going to try to make it so it's not so much the case to just give people a couple options of where they might want to attend this year. But Lars, take it away with the schedule for each season. Let's just go through let's do the full thing. Let's go home and road, and then we're going to spend some time just talking about trips and why people might want to take, or Husky fans might want to take trips to certain destinations.
Sure. All right. So we'll go to 2025. We'll start there. We're going to do away and then home. So the away games at Maryland, you return to the Big House to play Michigan, down to UCLA, and then the dub versus dub matchup of UW versus Wisconsin at Camp Randall. I'm just kind of teasing where my next answer is going to be of which one would I want to go to. Yeah, I'm just going to plant my Camp Randall flag right now. I
was going to do that.
And then, but you can take it. I'll go to.
We can do that.
I'll go to College Park. I took a tour there back in college, back after high school. So I've been there. I know my way around University Park. And then you come home to host Illinois, the only school to offer or attempt to offer. Did offer Armand Parker. Yeah. Yep. Did offer Armand Parker. Correct. I got a great backstory on that one when they come back next year. A different head coach. The different head coach. So Ryan Rodgers doesn't take the total credit, the total bullet on that one, but there's a crazy story there. You host Ohio State next year, or 2025, I should say, not next year, 2025. Sorry, which that's a significant one. I think that's good to also get that series going, because also you have to remember that was a home and home with Ohio State and Washington. They got canceled before the move to the Big Ten was announced, and a couple of months before. So it wasn't like, oh, they're canceling this because they're coming to the Big Ten. No. People thought they were just canceling it and saying, yeah, we don't want to play UW and we're good. Lincoln Kineholz, maybe he's starting quarterback for Ohio State. And we got an Austin Mack, Lincoln Kineholz battle. That could be an interesting matchup there. You won't have a Mecca or JTT or anybody else like that, but that's still a unique underlying story there. Then you host Oregon, you host Purdue, and you host Rutgers. Basically, I'm looking at that as your biggest one there is Ohio State and Oregon. That's just my take. Yeah. There. Moving on to 2026, or do you want to stay on 25 for a bit?
No, yeah, let's just fire through it, and then we'll circle back around to each one.
Okay, cool. So 2026, you go back to Michigan State. Should be a easy game there, depending on who's the head coach. It will not be. I want to make a claim. It will not be Urban Meyer.
It will not be.
Nebraska. Then you go to Nebraska, which I think is another kind of in that Camp Randall mold of it's a big, unique atmosphere. Then you go back to Oregon, Purdue, and USC. So now you're having a couple. That in 2026 you only play 2 of the 4 former Pac-12 schools. So you miss UCLA and you miss who's the other one? Oh, you miss UCLA. Yeah. No. So they play USC in 2026.
Okay. That's right. You said that.
And then they host Indiana, Iowa, Minnesota, and Penn State. So there's a gap in years between when they host Penn State or when they play Penn State, but there's back-to-back against Purdue. So you're starting to see how these schedules kind of stack up from a legitimate tier conference. And, you're not playing Michigan and Penn State. So
moving on to 2027, what do we got?
Thank you. Minnesota. So away games: Minnesota, Northwestern, Penn State, and Rutgers. Then you come home to host Maryland, Michigan State, Nebraska, Oregon, and USC. 2027 might arguably be the best slate here. That's actually a pretty good slate.
A good one. Yeah.
And then 2028, just to round this thing out: away, Illinois, Indiana, Maryland, Ohio State, Oregon. Come back to host Michigan, Northwestern, UCLA, and Wisconsin. That one, without question, is a tougher road season.
Oh, yeah, that's going to be a tough one. All right, so let's get into it. Let's have some fun. 2024, you can only pick one road game to attend. No, I'm not picking New Jersey. Which one are you going with?
Having been to Bloomington, having been to Iowa City, Oregon doesn't count. Just because I say it doesn't count because I've been down there enough. I've covered many games at Austin. That would not be a unique, even as the first Big Ten matchup. I don't expect anything to be different. They're not going to tear down Austin and put in 70,000 more seats. It's not going to be that much different. I want to say the easy one of Happy Valley and Penn State. We can double down on this one.
But if you go there, I'll go somewhere else, and because I know where I'd go if not.
Okay, so you know what? I'm going to leave that one for you. So I'll make the case for Iowa City because I've been to Iowa City. I have family in Iowa. It's kind of it's a true Midwestern college town, right? Where it's big enough. It's a little bit like Ames. I don't know if anybody's ever been to Ames, but it's the same sort of thing with Iowa State up there, where it's Kinnick Stadium is really nice. It's it's not the biggest, right? But it's a unique vibe. It had similar vibes to when I went out to Michigan. Again, not totally, right? But it had enough Michigan vibes there. Not Michigan State vibes. It was not that those two are different drastically, but just enough. Think of actually Pullman. Think of a bigger version of Pullman. That might be better. Maybe a little bit of Corvallis and Pullman combined there. I know, shout out to the Pac-2. But it's a nice college town. It's a great environment, good people. I think Husky fans, if you don't want to go all the way back east and you want to have a happy medium, also, I would recommend flying into Omaha and driving to Iowa City versus flying into Des Moines because it is about 4 times more expensive to fly in from anywhere into Des Moines, Iowa, than it is to fly into Omaha and drive. It's actually cheaper to fly into Colorado, Denver, and drive to Iowa. Wow. Yeah.
Well, that speaking of long drives, that would leave me to make the case for Happy Valley, which, I mean, obviously the experience, like maybe they do a whiteout, which would be really cool, but just everything that Penn State has been on the field over the last couple of seasons would be so much fun to experience. But I've just heard so many fun things about Happy Valley as a college town, especially during the year during football season, that there's just the city is just alive, especially on game days. And just look at that atmosphere. That is just kind of what the Big Ten is all about. And I know that's kind of what Husky fans hope that Husky Stadium can be if this team is dominant over a long stretch. And it's just kind of a really, really fun tone setter just to kind of as a welcome to the Big Ten kind of moment. So I think that would be really, really fun. Moving on to 2025. You left it for me. I appreciate that. Yeah. Wisconsin. I have some friends that live up there. I have a bunch of friends that actually went out there for a tailgate a couple of years ago. And the most fun tailgate place I've ever tailgated, and with all due respect to Husky Stadium, was when I went down to LSU for an LSU Georgia game. And my friends who just said, yeah, no, Wisconsin, as all due respect to the SEC, Wisconsin had the best game day atmosphere we've ever experienced, tailgating and everything. So Camp Randall, jump around, everything else that they do there, that would be a fantastic place to watch a football game.
And I will leave that one, but co-sign as well. No arguments there. He's absolutely right. But I will take Maryland and University Park because having been there on campus, it's a nice campus. It's very spread out, right? But it's kind of outside the Metroplex, so you're not dealing with like Seattle traffic, that sort of thing. So it's not, Maryland wouldn't be like Washington, but it also it's a little more like Oregon, right? If you think if anybody's been down to Austin, it's not exactly like it. It's kind of an apples to oranges comparison, but there's enough similarities to where that would be my comp for the Pac-12 for a Pac-12 school to compare to Maryland. But it is a nice area, nice setting. I've never been to a game there, but I toured the campus. Talked to some people, great people, good people. So. Safe area for, I remember Tulsa fans were in the comments saying, hey, could we actually make it out safely to Seattle? If you had an ignorant Seattleite, you'd say, can we make it out safely to Maryland and not make it, having some trouble with Baltimore? But, with that being said, Maryland, I think, second option, but it's a good option.
That sounds like a fantastic option, yeah.
Probably a cheaper option compared to Penn State. But, it's one of those where, hey, if you don't want to go all the way up to that, want to make that drive, you can fly into a number of different airports and go out to University Park probably in like half an hour to an hour.
What about 2026? Where are you going?
Oh, where am I going? You know what? Since you took Wisconsin, I'm taking Nebraska, baby. It's another one. I'm gonna keep that Midwestern. Nebraska. Here's the thing about Nebraska. There is nothing truly that can replicate what that environment does. And I say that respectfully because they had 105,000. They had almost six figure in attendance for a volleyball game.
That's awesome.
At Cornhusker State. But that what, and to be fair, and I'm somebody who is skeptical of attendance numbers and things like that. It must have been like a free giveaway. Well, here's the thing. You can do that in a lot of places and still not get anywhere near that number. You got 500,000 people plus in the city of Seattle, and yet, this is not a shot at UW. This is more of a message to the fan base than anything else, that you can get 5,000 fans in a free spring game, which I know it's not a full spring game. And it's not a traditional like SEC 8A sort of thing, where you're having a legitimate, 4-quarter game, so to speak. Right. But the problem is always going to be attendance, right? You're never going to get that number coming out to Husky Stadium. You
absolutely
should, but it just for some reason doesn't happen. So I think it's almost like when UW fans start to see how these other schools in the Big Ten do it, I think that combination of how the fans do it and how the university sees it is going to come together, and it's going to start to grow what UW is able to do. Not because they're going to be copying other schools, but I think fans are going to need to say, hey, wait, we need to be just like them. We need to show our support just like them. Because also, Chris Peterson said on KJR, this is part of the move. You have to buy in. Everybody has to invest. Everybody has to go. And it can't just be, because the problem is if you make this move and you don't show up and you're maybe 5% of the fan base, 5% of the opposing fan base and sort of or stadium, you're only getting like a small chunk in the upper left top row corner sort of thing. That's not like a good USC, move. Especially.
Sorry. That's more of a shot at USC than anything else. But before we get to my 2026 pick, got to take a second here for the good people over at FanDuel. And I'm so excited to snap into the action this NFL season with FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets, guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. That's $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. If you think about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action. The app is so easy to use. There's a wide range of betting options, including spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and kick off the NFL season. FanDuel is an official partner of the NFL. And again, I know I've reminded you before. I'm going to remind you again that it's a great time to place some bets on Michael Penix for Heisman, as he currently is not the favorite. So you might be getting a little better odds right now. And who knows, with a big Oregon game coming up next week, if he has the game that we've said he might on this podcast, that those odds might shift dramatically. So get those bets in now. And so for my 2026 pick, I struggle with this a little bit because there are two games on the schedule that I like. I know people have already been to Oregon, USC. So I'm down to Michigan State and Purdue. And I've heard a lot of good things about Purdue, and I think that would be a great place to go. But I'm going to actually recommend Michigan State again. I heard a lot of fun things from some friends who decided to go out and make that trip. I know that this gentleman right here, Lars Hanson, also made that trip. And I just heard some great things about the food. I personally love Detroit-style pizza, so that's something that I'm kind of sad I didn't get to go out and experience. But no, I think that would be a really, really cool place to go watch a game. And maybe Michigan State's better. they've caught enough strays on this episode, so I'm not going to go further down that road. But maybe they're better, and maybe you get to just experience what it's like when the Spartans are good, because I know that's a really fun atmosphere when they are. 2027, Minnesota, Northwestern, Penn State, and Rutgers. I've already planted my Penn State flag, so I am going to go with Northwestern. And it doesn't have so much to actually go with the atmosphere of the game. I've heard it's a very small stadium. But my mom is from Chicago. My dad did his master's at Northwestern. So I have some ties to the city of Chicago. And I mentioned Detroit style pizza. There's nothing I love more than Chicago style pizza. And Chicago as a whole is just a really, really fantastic place. As I said, both my parents lived there for a while. And my one conversation I had with my dad is, if weather wasn't a factor and you could live anywhere, that Chicago would be that place. So I totally respect that as someone who's been out there a couple of times and just gotten to experience the food, the city itself. Yeah, I'm going with Northwestern just for those reasons.
That's a good choice. I mean, I'm not sure Evanston would be on my top 10 list than anything.
That's why I said Chicago, not Evanston.
But exactly. But the problem is the game. You know that could be another thing. Is the game played in Soldier Field or wherever their new stadium is? That because we're talking what 2027? Yeah, that
so it could be done
by then. That could easily be done. Yeah.
Sure.
So that could be fair point. No, but shout out. I mean, you said Chicago, so I'm thinking, okay, maybe this guy knows something I don't, which is also always the case. But I will because you took Northwestern. And already have Happy Valley, so I co-sign on that one already. No disrespect to Rutgers, but I'm going to Minnesota. I'm gonna.
Yep.
Whether PJ Fleck is still rowing the boat up there or not, give me Minnesota. Just give me that. It really, and I have not been there, so I'm speaking from a little bit of ignorance here, but it kind of reminds me of Oregon State, right? Where that same sort of kind of mentality, right? That tough. It's going to be a tough game, right? It's going to be kind of a grinder game. So no matter what the offensive style or defensive style is, it's not going to be a cupcake game. Like, oh, hey, UW Michigan easily should be, or UW Minnesota should be an easy one for UW. It's like, we say that, but how many other times in history have we said UW should beat Oregon State and that game goes into the fourth quarter as a one-score game or even down for UW? So I think, I think that would be a unique atmosphere. I have some friends up in Minnesota, so give me Minnesota. Why not?
It's not too far outside of Minneapolis either. So I mean, you can still kind of have that same kind of experience that you live with Northwestern. So I like that pick a lot.
That game better be played in late September, early October. That's all I.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That's
my only caveat there, because if it's in late November, we got issues.
All right, on to 2028, and you do have the first pick, and I think I know where you're going with this.
Yeah, give me Columbus. Yep. Give me Columbus. I gave you Happy Valley earlier. I think, from what I've heard about Columbus, I have some friends out there that cover Ohio State and, heard a lot about it. We got some former recruits out here that currently play at Ohio State, and they talk a lot about it. I'm intrigued to kind of see how does it compare to USC? What does it compare to Oregon? Kind of, because you hear it, right? You say, hey, this is what you should expect. But then you actually get out there, and I've never been to Columbus. I've been to Cincinnati. I've been to around Ohio, but I've never been to Columbus, Ohio. So I think there's kind of this allure where it's like it's almost in a way, in a different way, but similar. It's kind of like Duke and Durham, where town gown sort of thing. Where town gown that's where I'm coming. I'm not saying Duke is and Ohio State but from that town, okay, how does a town and a university compare? What does it look like? How is that situation? Same with UW and Seattle, right? I mean, actually, in a way, UW and Seattle, they're kind of the same thing. Where is it big enough to where it's a little bit separate? Is it the main thing? Hybrid of both? That would be a great game for UW fans to go out to.
I couldn't agree more. And I am going to take Indiana on this one. Just Bloomington is gorgeous, great place to just go and just kind of spend a couple of days. I think from everything I've heard, it's not somewhere that I've been, but that's somewhere that I would just really be looking forward to just kind of taking in for a couple of days. I definitely would prefer late September, early October, just like Lars would in Minneapolis or just in Minnesota in general. So that's where I would go there. The football is fine, but also Kalen DeBoer coached there for a while, and assuming that he is the head coach of this team for the long foreseeable future, that getting a little bit of a homecoming there for him would be really cool too. So I think that would be just a great one. And, before we wrap up here, Lars, we're just going to go rapid fire here. early 2024 predictions. I want 1, maybe 2. Let's make them quick. And if you want, as is tradition on the show, make them as bold as you want, because I've got 1 and it's bold.
So I think, I mean, that's the problem that we have to factor in is how many guys are coming. I mean, this team is going to look so much different. There's going to be so many transfer portal runners. I'm going to say 7-2.
Okay.
Because I think they'll beat Michigan, but they're going to lose to either USC or Oregon, and there might be one other one in there. There might be one other. I just because if this was this year's team next year, different story. But I think there's so many unanswered questions going into next year. I'm going to just caveat it and say 7-2.
So my prediction is in a similar vein, but I wanted to take it a step farther. So I looked specifically at the road schedule here, and what my thought is they're going to go 4-1 on the road, led by quarterback Austin Mack. Yeah, that's where I wanted to go with this. And you got anything else for us here today?
And Tybar Rogers at running back too, right?
Oh, dude, Tybo's gonna run for 200 yards in every single game.
That's what I'm saying. I mean, but that's the thing. You know, I'm for as many good pieces as the team has coming back, they're gonna need a lot in the transfer portal. You talked about losing Eddie. You talked about the receivers. They have great talent coming back. So it's not like the cover is going to be bare like Jimmy Lake left it. But with that being said, well, actually, he didn't leave it bare. He just left it inept. But that's a different story. But beyond that, it's there's going to be a lot of new players on this team. And how many can you get from the Big Ten that end up facing their former school? So I think there could be a few other twists and turns into this as well.
I couldn't agree with you more. And Lars, as always, thank you for just being here, just doing what you do. And I know all of our everydayers out there appreciate it, just like we appreciate our everydayers. Everyone who just tunes in, whatever you're watching or listening to this on right now, we really do appreciate all your support and you tuning in as you stick with us here on Locked On Huskies. And, you know, if you aren't an everydayer yet, we would love for you to become one. Make sure wherever you're listening to this, like, comment, subscribe, do whatever it is, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon Music. We are there. We are everywhere. Just continue to tune in. If you have any questions for us, you can just shoot us a note on Twitter. If you have a mailbag, anything you want to do for that, we're very available. We want to make sure that we answer as many questions as possible. And Oregon week is coming up soon, so make sure you stay tuned for all that. We'll talk to you soon.